My name is Mario Williams. I'm currently the chief of the Civil Rights Division for Nexus Carried Out as Attorneys, Inc. I met Mike Donovan through a very good friend of mine. So we were talking about different things, and he was just like, I really want to start a civil rights division. We already, and he kind of explained it to me, and I was just like, well, what do you have now? So he said, we already have what we consider the largest pro bono legal service for immigration. And I was like, okay, what do you all do with that? Because I don't do immigration. And he's like, we work on everything, asylum, deportation, different things of that nature. I was like, okay, that's great. Well, what is your dream? What is your vision? He said, well, I would like to do civil rights. And I'm kind of just looking for the right person for that division. And I said, well, what do you envision civil rights as being? And without me even telling him too much about my past, and I didn't mention any of the work that I did in human rights, he said, well, I see civil rights as human rights. So I said, okay, well, this Donovan guy might be all right. He kind of understands naturally the connection between the two. So I said, well, let me do some research on his organization. So I looked into his organization, and I saw some good things, and then I saw some criticisms. I saw some criticisms about his immigration program. I guess, providing ankle bracelets to get people released out of detention centers. And because I don't deal with that, bonding or anything like that, I did not understand it.
My name is Luis Vega. I am 23 years old now. Well, going to turn 23 this year. And there was one day that I started using drugs to feel happy. That's all I needed. I started losing the thought of loving my parents. And all that I was doing was just making me get in trouble, falling into detention facilities. The third time, I thought there was no way out. The third time I fell into immigration detention, I thought there was no way out. I was detained in there for almost a year, I believe so, and all I could do was pray. There was this one guy that came to me. He's like, I know a company that can help you out. Call this number. I gave the number to my mother and father, and they called, and then, 2 weeks later, I was released. I went home. I was cutting the yard, and there's this guy that comes up to me, a friend of mine. He's like, hey, man, I see that you're out now. I got some of this, let's go do it, and I fell right in the trap again. While I was out, I was wearing a GPS from Nexus services, and it was like 2 a.m. I was feeling bad on drugs. And I sent a very long message to Mike, the way I felt. And then he calls me. He's like, hey, man, it's Mike Donovan, CEO from Nexus. How can I help you? And then the next few days, we were texting each other back and forth. And then all of a sudden, he offers me, you want to work for me in another place, another place of the United States? And I'm like, yeah, we can do that. And I moved here. It was hard for me the first months because I was addicted to the drugs. And little by little, I stopped thinking about drugs. And I feel healthy now. I feel better now. And all that is thanks to Mike Donovan. He is truly an amazing person. That message was the best thing that could ever happen to me. Because that was a road for a better life.
I called him up. I said, hey, explain this bond situation to me. How does this work for detention centers that's different from the criminal justice system? Then I did my own research and realized that before he came along with this great opportunity at freedom for hundreds, if not thousands, of people who had no opportunity for freedom in detention centers. It doesn't work like it does in the criminal justice system where you pay 10%. In detention centers, it had been where if you had a $20,000 bond and you couldn't come up with that cash, that $20,000, you were going to be in prison. And you were going to be detained, and it didn't matter if ultimately you were ruled as a person who did not need to be deported. Then you could go free, but you spent 4 years of your life detained.
My name is Liliana Cruz, and I'm married to Jose Guzman. I was born in Mexico, and my husband was born in Honduras. We have 6 children. My husband was pulled over. They pulled him over, asked him for his license, and he didn't have one. He was in immigration detention for 33 months. His judge that had his case never offered him a bond, and he refused to leave because his family's here. We're here. How do you tell your children that, dad's not a criminal, he's detained because he wasn't born here? They didn't quite understand. Finally, when they did give him a bond, it was even worse for me. For 18 months, he sat there having a bond, and I was not able to bond him out. I tried many different places. There's very few, by the way, that do immigration bonds. One of the guys there, he's like, you know what? Don't worry, I'm going to give you this number. There's a company called Libre, and they're going to help you. So my husband couldn't wait. He called that same night and spoke to Jonathan, which was one of the case managers.
Hola, mi nombre es Jonathan Mejía, trabajo para Libre by Nexus y lo que yo hago en la compañía es hablar con los clientes, explicarles nuestro programa, que ellos entiendan muy bien cómo es todo el trámite. Mi propósito, el propósito de Nexus es ayudar a las personas. Se trabaja bastante, pero a la vez hay una emoción en mi corazón, en mi ser, de ayudar a las personas porque en esta situación yo también lo viví y sé qué duro es estar detenido, sé qué duro es tener a su familiar lejos o no poder estar con él.
My whole attitude just completely changed. I was like, wow, this is a miracle. This is great. And I finally spoke to Jonathan. He explained the whole situation to me, how the program worked. And I'm like, you're really going to get him out? He's like, yes, we're going to get him out. I signed everything. I gathered everything I needed, paperwork and all. And I emailed it back. And I was just like, I couldn't believe that somebody was actually going to help us. He came home. Finally, he's seen all the kids, the younger ones, and it finally dawned on me. He is home. Give him a hug, thinking in my own mind. I couldn't be more happier, and the kids as well. And if it wasn't for Nexus, the opportunity, the door that was open, I wouldn't have a family right now. My kids wouldn't have a father. I wouldn't have a husband.
So I looked into this and I said, well, wait a minute now. He's giving people an opportunity to get out. Let's say somebody is scheduled for deportation and they actually have been ordered to be deported, but they're allowed to pay you through your services to provide an opportunity to get out and get all their affairs in order with their family before they actually have to leave this country. And nobody says they can't come back. He said, Mario, you're absolutely right. That's exactly how it works. This guy has put in a situation to where he's offering people freedom. I looked at that. I really did some research on it. I said, well, let me meet him face to face again. And I said, hey, look, what I need from you, Mike, is to figure out your plan of action because I have a law firm. And he said, hey, look, I'm talking national. I'm talking about really getting out here and trying to take on big cases because, Mario, look, the number one thing that I can do, that I know I can do besides show my belief in the work is I'll fund it. So I said, hey, Dan, you're not a lawyer. You don't understand how much this stuff costs. I said, you can have one of these cases, man, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. He said, man, I'll fund it. I said, so what have you funded so far? He said, well, look at this criminal case about a kid that was falsely accused of a very heinous crime.
When everything happened, it was on Facebook. Everything was on newspaper. My picture was newspaper, and on that newspaper, it was you're accused for that rape charge. Me knowing that I didn't do anything, that's what it hurts. Now people look at me different. When I got home at around 10:30 at night. I was falling asleep when I heard someone knock the door. And I look at the window, and it was 3 police officers outside of my house. They said that I was under arrest because of the charges of rape. They showed me the warrant, and I came out, and they arrested me, and they took me to Rockingham County Jail to spend that night over there. That morning, 3 officers or detectives here from Middle River, they went over there and picked me up. They told me that they were gonna transfer me to Middle River. I spent 9 months. I spent 6 months in maximum security, and the rest of that time I spent in population. It's called population. The person who got in contact with Nexus, it was my sister. And she's like, "You're gonna get out of there really soon." I'm like, "Why? How did you know?" She's like, "You don't have one attorney." She's like, "You have like 8, 9 attorneys around you now. Mike Donovan and Richard Moore. They're just an amazing presence. They have a big, huge heart. They do whatever they can to help you. If you're in prison or if you are in jail, they will do whatever they can to get you out of there, just to see you again with your family. Because that's what they did to me. They fought for me since the beginning, since the first day that I was in jail, all the way to the end.
And he dumped a whole lot of money in that, and that kid got off in a person of color in a predominantly conservative white jury and came back in 30 minutes with a not guilty. You just don't see that happening every day. He funded it completely because he believed in the case. And so when I think about the concept of put your money where your mouth is, I can't think of a better person than Mike Donovan. He had an all-staff celebration. Apparently there's 2 of these that go on a year. They got all kinds of food and all this stuff out here, and everybody's talking. Then I hear somebody say, okay, line up and get your donation money. And then I just want you to randomly go out into the streets of Verona, Virginia, and give people gifts, Christmas gifts and things like this. Everybody, long line, because there's a lot of staff, long line. Everybody's getting a white envelope. I end up being a part of the group that goes down to a shelter, homeless shelter. Other people are going into Walmarts and different grocery stores and on the street. And, people are like, are you really doing this for me? People are crying, being like, man, this must be God because I got rent payments due.
Merry Christmas and happy holidays from our Nexus family to yours.
Merry Christmas, guys.
Well, we've had quite a day giving away shopping sprees, and we get to give away a brand new home.
It's been amazing.
Exciting.
Oh my gosh, it's been so incredible. When I started working at Nexus, there were about 12 employees, and that was all the employees under Nexus Services. Libre was pretty much the only organization at the time. Of course, we did a lot of other things, helping the community locally, but that was our life source. I was called to do an interview, and I interviewed with Mike Donovan and Richard Moore. So I go in and I sit down, and I'll never forget, I meet Mike, and I walk into the office, and I can hear everybody, it just sounded fun. Everybody was talking, everybody was laughing. So I sit down, and I'll never forget it. Mike sits down with me, and he goes, okay. He's like, so have you ever been to jail before? So, yes. But how do you tell someone that? I figure it's better to be honest. I'm not a very good liar because I have a really bad memory. So I told him, I said, yeah, I've been in jail. And his response was, good. And I was like, that didn't make any sense to me at all. How is that good? And he said, you can relate to our clients. You can understand our clients, the people that we serve. Everything changed. Everything changed. And we had a really amazing interview. And I started working. And I started I started doing training. I believe that I'm fairly intelligent. You know, being here, I've had an opportunity to grow that intelligence and that education. Not necessarily in a traditional going to school sort of education, but an education of worldliness, dealing with people, dealing with people of all walks of life, with executives of different companies, with attorneys, with people that have provided me with knowledge that I never thought that I would have access to. And I have that because of Nexus, because of Mike and Richard.
I like true believers in the human rights, civil rights realm. I only deal with really what I consider true believers as lawyer friends of mine in this because I know they're going to go all the way to the end with it. You're going in on what you know is wrong and what you know is right. That's Mike Donovan. When Harvey hit, he was first up to bat. He sent people down there along with Richard Moore because he knew it was the right thing to do because people's lives are at stake. What are you doing in your personal life, regardless of how small your circle is, to affect other people around you in a positive way? And what I can say about Mike and what I can say about Richard is they're doing a hell of a lot.